Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And this week on the show we have
Kayley Loring.
Yes, we do. It was a great interview. Yeah. Kayley was a screenwriter and then transitioned into being a novelist. And we talk about that. That's okay. That's Sarah's dog. I'm just glad it's not mine this time. How she transitioned into writing novels and romance and how she takes care of her readers. And it was a great interview.
Yeah. And she has a podcast for audio. Like she's using it to, it's a very interesting marketing tactic too. She was doing exclusive content in audio for her listeners.
Yes.
And so it's very interesting. So we talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked to her a lot about her transition, what it was like when she was a screenwriter and how she transitioned into writing fiction. So it was very cool.
It was a great interview. So what's been going on with you?
Well, this week is, when this goes out, last week was Historical Mystery Day. And that was the day that I launched. And I was so glad it went well. I felt like I was throwing a party and I wasn't sure if anyone was going to come. But people came and posted about it and tweeted.
Yeah,
and shared.
That's great.
Yeah. So it went well. And it was people that I didn't know. So it made me feel better. So people were excited about it. And I think now it's launched and it's really took up a lot more time than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And now I can get more back into writing. So, and I also did a course from Becca Syme. It's a using the strengths to help you create characters. And it was really interesting and really, really good. It was just like a one-day course. I really liked it.
Oh,
so
that's great.
If you're into strengths, you might check and see when that's going to be. I don't know when it'll be available again, but it was really good.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, I haven't done a whole lot this week. I had to have some medical stuff done, which, that always takes up time that you don't expect. And but I did go to my family's in my little small town this weekend. My nephew's getting married, so there was a big shower barbecue. It was like I do barbecue was the theme of the shower. But let me tell you, I got lots and lots of material for my books just being there a couple of days. So that
is awesome. That's great.
That's always good. So it's always good to go. Plus it's great to see my family. So but yeah, that was about it. So
well, that's good. It's research, right?
It's research, 100% research. Oh my gosh. I actually learned some stories about my sister that I didn't know. And because I have 4 sisters and the 2 youngest sisters are 10 years and 13 years younger than me. So while they, were growing up and getting in trouble, like in high school and stuff, I was not around. And so there was a lot I didn't know, but oh my gosh, my sister told the funniest story and it is definitely going in a book. I'm just telling you, it's going in a book. So
that is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It was great. Wow. It was really great. But anyway, we should get on with the interview because it's so good. Yes. And I know people are going to really love hearing from Kayley.
Yes, that sounds great. So here's Kayley.
All right.
All right. Today we have Kayley Loring with us. We're super excited to talk to you. How are you, Kayley?
I'm fine. I'm also super excited. Hi. It's a rainy. No, I'm happy to be here. It's a rainy Pacific Northwest day, and I'm just always busy doing at least 90 things. So this is actually nice because now I'm only doing one thing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we're recording after lunch for Jami and I, so this could be the afternoon lull.
Yes.
Normally we would try and record in the morning when we're all
I just had breakfast. Fun times.
Okay, well, let me read your bio, and then we'll get it. We'll get it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Before writing steamy romantic comedy novels, Kayley Loring got a BFA in creative writing from a Canadian university and had a 15-year career as a screenwriter in Los Angeles under a different name. She wrote mostly PG-13 family comedies that studios would pay her lots of money for and then never make into movies. In 2017, she decided to move to the Pacific Northwest and write about all the fun stuff that she wasn't allowed to write about in those PG-13 scripts. Now she's breathing cleaner air and writing dirtier words, and it's an adjustment she's happily getting used to.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So, how did you get into writing? Tell us that. Like in the beginning, how did you get into writing?
In the beginning, yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, like actually writing because I feel like I've been writing forever. Like I started telling people I was going to be a screenwriter when I was like 16 in high school, and I had never even seen a script. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And then when I was 17, I fell in love with my boyfriend in high school. Was kind of the school writer. He was a playwright, and he had like won this local award for playwriting. And I had always sort of thought, well, eventually I'll write something, but he was actually doing it. And I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I just started. And then I decided to, start taking creative writing courses in college. And so that was my BFA. And I wrote short stories and plays and radio plays. I never wrote a novel. I was taking like only graduate level workshops, and like all of the other grad students were writing novels, and I just kept saying, I just don't think I have a novel in me. I don't even have one novel in me. Like, what do I have to say? And so I had this plan, a very like the kind of plan that you only have when you're like 20. And it was so I was going to graduate, and then I was going to write short fiction until I was 25 years old, and my goal was to be on one of those like 25 under 25 lists.
Yeah.
Or something. So I was like, so I'm going to do that, and then when I'm 25, I'm going to move to New York, and I'm going to be a playwright, and I'm just going to write plays and become a celebrated playwright. And then when I'm 32 years old, I'll be ready to move to Los Angeles as a celebrated playwright. And then people are just going to throw money at me to write scripts for them.
Right.
That was the plan. And then like immediately after I graduated college, I went to visit my best friend who was, she was working as a producer's assistant on this, like a Hollywood studio film that was shooting in the province where I lived. And I just went to hang out, and one of the stars of, I've actually never told this story before on a podcast. One of the stars of the film was somebody that I actually really, really admired. And he was he was older than me. And so I met him, and we became friends, and I told him my stupid plan about when I'm 25 and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, that's dumb. You should move to LA when you're young and skinny and you can really enjoy it. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I did. I moved to LA when I was 21, and
wow.
And I was very lucky in that things happened for me pretty quickly. Like, I did that thing where I kind of worked on my first feature script, forever, and just kept rewriting it, and then just finally kind of put it away. Because it wasn't that good. And also, I was 21. Like, what did I have to write about? It was just a lot of people complaining about being 21, basically. But then the next script that I wrote, and I met all these people. When I first got there, I worked as an assistant, like a PA for people like in Hollywood, and people would just, people just wanted to help me. And so I would meet them, and they would be like, well, show me your script. And, I got a manager and an agent very quickly. And within the first several months of being signed with an agent, I sold a script. I'd written it as a feature script, but it sold to a TV movie producer, like they optioned it. And then within, less than a year of that, I had my first studio sale to a big studio. And so that was a big deal. And like I initially wanted to write like indie movies, indie scripts. But as soon as you get into the studio system in Hollywood, all of your representatives want you to stay there because, there's much less of a chance of a film actually getting produced, but you're guaranteed to make more money if you are hired to write a script or if they buy a spec script. So I kind of stayed in the studio system forever, and people really liked my writing. I was not a shrewd person at all. And so I would just kind of show up to meetings and hang out with people and be like, oh, show me pics of your kids, kind of thing. And like, oh, what diet are you on right now? You look amazing, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, but people like actually liked me as a person, which I think is one of the reasons that I lasted as long as I did, because what I kept hearing was like the average length of a career for an unproduced screenwriter is 5 years, which makes sense. But I was lucky in that like every 5 years I would have like a kind of a splashy sale or something like that. And also I just, for whatever reason, I was just really good at dealing with producers, because you get notes on your scripts and you have to rewrite them just over and over and over again. And a lot of screenwriters hated that, and they were very resistant to doing rewrites, and rightly so, because you're pretty much always doing it for free. It's kind of free work. But I was able to, ask the producers questions until I got a reasonable answer as to what it was they actually wanted me to do in the rewrite, because that's usually the problem. Like when you get into development hell, nobody actually knows what anybody else wants. So anyways, so it was a lot of that. I was very lucky, and I was actually a working writer for a really long time. And then, so the last job I had, I was a staff writer for a studio, and it was kind of a job that was really created for a beginning writer, for a newbie. But because this was after the Writers Guild strike. So the whole landscape of Hollywood kind of changed, and there were fewer studios and fewer jobs, less money for studios to buy scripts. So they were getting a lot of not necessarily seasoned writers, but really good writers who had experience, including me. And so it was an exclusive contract, and so in a way I kind of disappeared from the world and was just writing for this one studio. And I learned a lot, and I was doing all the things that I kind of hated. I loved just writing. I hated talking about scripts. I hated pitching stuff. I hated doing outlines and all that kind of thing. That was all the stuff I had to do. So in a way, it was great for me. And it ended up being really great for me, preparing me to be an author, but I didn't know it at the time. So anyways, because I kind of disappeared off the face of Hollywood for 2 years because of that exclusive thing, it was very hard for me to kind of get back out there after this exclusive deal. And also I was writing exclusively PG-13 family comedies for this studio. And I just wanted to mix things up, and I wanted to write about sex and death. And I realized that if I was going to do that, I was really starting over, because all of the contacts that I had, all of the fans that I had around town, they were in the comedy space.
Right.
And so, you know, I saw the writing on the wall and I was like, well, this isn't going to happen anymore. And so what's the next thing for me to do? And, you know, this was after, you know, the kind of heyday of self-publishing, but my best friend in Canada was somebody who really wanted to write novels. And I kept telling her, like, right after, E.L. James's, after 50 Shades came out, I was like, well, you can do this. And she did. And she actually had, you know, some success in like 2013, 2012 or whatever. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll give this a try. And I ironically actually absolutely hated writing romantic comedy screenplays because you have the least amount of kind of creative leeway. It's like very formulaic. And I hated that. I loved writing dialogue, and, you know, the banter was great, but I really hated how limited you are in terms of telling a story. But I was like, okay, well, I'll just, when I was still in LA, I decided to write I novelized basically an unfinished romantic comedy screenplay that I had. And I just kind of added some sex, and I published it. But I thought going into it, I thought, well, I'm going to do this right. And so, like, I hired a designer for the cover, and I think I hired someone to do like a promo or something like that. It did well enough that I was like, okay, you know, I guess I can do it. Honestly, like, when I look at it, I kind of want to unpublish my first 3 books. I'm not going to, but possibly when I publish 3 or 4 more books, I might unpublish the first 3. There are people who like it, but I look at it and I'm like, this is so clearly just a novelization of an unfinished script. But anyway, so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to do this, but in order to actually start what is honestly a totally new career, even though it was just, it was also writing, it's so different. So I had to like think, okay, well, I can't keep living in LA where, you know, just the like property taxes for my huge house was like $16,000 a year at that point. And I was like selling my book for 99 cents in Kindle Unlimited. So I had to put my house on the market, and there was that whole thing. And so it took like a whole year between like publishing that first Kayley Loring book and like selling my house, moving here, taking, you know, several months here to like get settled. And I didn't have writer's block or anything, but it was the first time in my adult life where I just wasn't writing, and it was kind of wonderful. And I actually just really needed the break. And then kind of November 2017 came along, and I was like, I guess I gotta get back into it. And so I did another novelization of another unfinished screenplay. It was so much worse than the first one. It's probably my worst reviewed book because it didn't even really have a trope. But anyways, so that was it. You know, I consider this my second career, even though, you know, I've been writing forever.
Yeah.
But so that's it. First, it was just like, okay, well, you know, I just kind of always knew I was going to be a writer. And so I just did it. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of done being this kind of writer. So I guess I'm going to be another kind of writer that I never anticipated
I
would ever be, you know, and I just kind of jumped in. That's sort of how I do things. Like just for like really huge life decisions, I just wake up one morning. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. And then I will take a couple of years to actually backtrack and go, okay, well, so how am I actually going to do this right?
It seems to be working out okay.
Yeah, it's working out just fine. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
Well, what is your definition of success then? That's one thing we like to talk about.
Yeah. So, I mean, as an author, it's layered and it changes. I mean, there's like the creative success wherein like, I'm not going to hit publish on a book unless I've written something that has given me all the feels while I was writing it. If it has made me laugh, if I've gotten totally invested in the characters and fallen in love with the hero, and made myself at the very least tear up towards the end, then it's successful to me. And then I'll publish it. And then there's a matter of, is it something that my core fans enjoy? Is it the kind of book that they expect from me? And do they love it? And then there's and I never compare my success to any other authors, because I think that what I'm doing is pretty specific. And so it's not based on, how well other people's books are doing right now, or other people's books in the same trope or subgenre or whatever. It's just, it has a lot more to do with, my most recent releases and certain expectations that I have in terms of ranking. And I mean, there is a financial aspect, since this is this is how I make a living. So there's sort of, do I make, the minimum amount of money that I need, I suppose, or expect. And then beyond that, it's am I finding a new audience too? That's usually kind of gravy, but this, I think sort of internally, the stakes kind of go up with every release. And certainly after A Very Bossy Christmas was the biggest success that I've had so far with a book. And it was kind of, it was really unexpected. And a lot of it had to do with word of mouth and the fact that it came out at Christmas, and it was a unique, fun book. And, none of my books have been in the top 25. I mean, that made the top 25, and that was huge for me. And it stayed in the top 100 for 2 months.
Wow.
Which was insane. And, I don't know if another book of mine is ever going to do that. It might, but, I think I've had 2 releases since then, and they haven't. And that's, that's fine. So it's just, you kind of take it project by project. It's I put out a book called The Love Interest. Maybe that's what came out. That came out after the Friendly Valentine's Day one, but that was a total standalone. And it was kind of not experimental, but I kind of wrote 3 books within a book, and I was writing 3 different styles of writing within a book, and it was really hard for me. But and it did well, in that. My core fans really liked it, and there were some new people who really loved it. But it wasn't a huge hit because it wasn't a typical romantic comedy. And I guess, honestly, I was a little bit disappointed because it was really hard for me to write. But at the same time, it was really good. It was really good, and the audiobook was amazing. And so as a backlist title, it's fantastic. So it's interesting to me that I think you kind of have to look at the success of your entire library as a whole, ultimately.
Right.
Yes, I think that helps us stay on an even keel if we're instead of, we do get wrapped up in each release, but if we can think of it over time. And I was very happy to hear that you had a Christmas release that did really well, because a lot of people now are never release in December. It's the worst time. But I mean, if you're going to do a Christmas book, you kind of don't have much choice. But that's great that it did so well. So
well, I actually released it, I think it was October 26th when I first released it, so it was even before, and so there was a lot of time to build word of mouth.
Before.
And it also had a really fantastic cover.
It does. It's one of, it's one of your best covers for sure. It's a good one. I love that you talk about writing to your core fans, and then if you get new readers, then that's gravy. I love that, because I think that for me in particular, I do. Anytime I go off the rails, it's because I've lost sight of my core fans, and I keep thinking about the other readers. Like, can I grab these other readers with what I'm writing?
Like while you're writing, you think that?
Mm-hmm. I do that sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's not good. It's never good when I do that. So, but anyway, that's one thing I've really focused on with this book, is just the book I just put out was, it rings all the bells for my core fans. So really happy about that. But I think that's important that we think about that. So tell us what you wish you'd known about writing and craft.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to answer that, just because like I said, I kind of feel like I've been writing forever, and I did actually study writing and craft. So when I got my BFA, I learned the Aristotelian 3-act structure, and I learned how to rewrite. That's kind of the first thing you need to learn when you start writing, is that the first draft isn't it.
Yeah.
Although I will say that at this point, as a writer, and for quite a while, because I did so much rewriting, as a screenwriter, that really helped me as an author, because I'm actually a very clean writer. I really only write one draft. And I write it in, I write entire novels in less than a month and a half at this point. And then I just kind of do a really quick polish. Mm-hmm. And that's because I've done so much rewriting just in general in my life that I kind of see where the potential problems are going to be. And so I kind of work that out beforehand, or I can actually even kind of figure it out on the fly at this point too. That's not to say that I don't have absolute meltdowns with every single project, but
part of the process.
I mean, writing or craft. I mean, I guess if we go back to before, I started college, what I wish I'd known was just how much actual work is involved. And not that, I am obviously kind of a borderline workaholic, and you kind of have to be an indie author, but, you start writing and you write your first draft of something, and you're just like, this is the most amazing thing anyone has ever written, and the entire universe is going to embrace it as such. Yeah. And then you, if you're in a workshop, and then you share it with other people, and now all of a sudden, oh, you have notes? Oh, oh, I see. Oh, you think, so it can be better. Interesting. Okay. That's great.
What about writing a novel then? What do you wish you'd known about writing a novel? I mean, was it so different from script writing?
It's completely different. So if for anyone who has never actually seen a script, the format of a script is, there are not a lot of actual words on the page. There's very, very little prose. Mm-hmm. You have a slug line that says interior, exterior, what the location is, the time of day. And that's for production. That's for the crew. And then there'll be a very brief description of who's in the scene and what's going on, of sort of action. And then the dialogue just goes down the middle of the page. And when you're writing a script, you want to make sure that the reader's eyes are always going down the page. So that's why there's very little prose, and the movies are never 2 hours anymore, but a 2-hour film would be 120 pages. But in those 120 pages, it's mostly dialogue going down the middle of the page. So it's what I'm saying is there's not a lot of words, and I never did a word count in a final draft file, but just learning to physically write all the way across the page and fill an entire Microsoft Word page with words was weird to me. It was so weird. And, writing dialogue tags where I was used to just putting the character's name and stuff like that. Like that was a strange adjustment. Structurally, it's the same. You're telling the same shape of a story, but, you can't get into a character's head when you're writing a screenplay. So, that's one of the things that I absolutely love writing novels is because I'm so in my head. And I think that's one of the things that people actually like about the way I write is like, I'm very kind of honest about what it's like to be a woman with an active brain that thinks a lot of weird thoughts. So it's kind of no holds barred for me now, just like writing the internal monologue and I write, it's always dual POV. I write the male and female chapters and I love that too, like actually being able to get into someone's head, but it's completely different because you're not, you can write subtext in the dialogue in a screenplay, but you can't, it's cheating to do a voiceover of what the person is thinking at the time. So you had to find creative ways of getting across what the person was actually thinking. And in a novel, you can just actually write it. And that's fantastic. Yeah. But it's just a lot of words. And so, when I was a screenwriter, I spent very little time actually writing. And now I'm like truly at my desk all day. Even when I'm not like actually writing, just all the stuff that you have to do as an author is just centered around your computer, and so much of it is communication. But, and that's the other thing too, is like, when I was a screenwriter, I had people doing things for me. Like you have an agent and a manager and, I don't know if any screenwriter actually needs a publicist because nobody actually cares about the screenwriters. But as an author, as an indie author, you do everything yourself. I mean, you can hire a team of people, but you're still, the CEO of your business, and you have to explain to people what you want, and you have to sign off on things. And there's so much communication involved. And then there's also, and one of the other things that I got really tired of as an unproduced screenwriter was, all my fans were like in Hollywood, like they're essentially being paid to read my stuff. And that's not why, you become a writer because you want to connect with the world in some way. And as an author, it's amazing that you actually get to connect with the readers, like the ones who reach out to you on social media or email. Like that's just fantastic. And, it keeps you going, but it's also, you can also learn from their comments, like direct comments, like what they love and respond to. And so that's kind of, when I talk about making sure when I'm writing appeals to my core fans, it's, I think because I'm so constantly in touch with those people, I'm very aware of what people want,
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I will say that you do write amazing dialogue. I've read a couple of your books and the dialogue is always just so snappy and funny and snarky. I just love that. And so your screenwriting time did pay off as far as.
It absolutely did. And I actually, I don't regret the amount of time that I spent doing that. I mean, like I said, it never would have occurred to me that it was leading up to this, but looking back, it absolutely did.
Yeah. Well, what about marketing? What do you wish you'd known about marketing?
I mean, just the fact that I had to do it. I didn't, honestly, I think when I was, in LA and like made the decision, okay, I'm going to do this. If I had known how much of this was marketing, I probably would have figured out something else. I don't know what. I honestly don't know what it would have been, but and again, I'm glad I didn't know. And because if I had decided, because I've grown into it is a thing. Like coming from, being a spoiled little screenwriter where everyone else was, doing stuff for me besides the writing. I have grown into it. And so, but the thing is, I did it on my own terms, and I did it very gradually, because at this point in my life, I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of, and I know how stressed out I get, especially, when I'm finishing up a book. Yeah. So it's stuff like that. And then my plan was, like, by the 10th book that I put out, I will do all the stuff you're supposed to do. I will, like, actually do social media and, start an IG and hire a publicist and hire editors and cover designers. And I did that. But then the 9th book that I wrote and put out, which was Come Back to Bed, ended up being kind of a sleeper hit. And I did, like, zero marketing at all for that book. I didn't even, at that point I don't even know if I had a mailing list at that point. I might have, but, like, I just had some followers on Facebook, and when I hit publish, that was the first time I actually posted something about it on Facebook. And people it was like a word of mouth thing. And it was a really good book. It was very, very likable. And it was a very absy guy on the cover that I did. And it did well, and it just kept doing better and better over the course of a couple of months. And so that was another one of those kind of surprise things. But I think, and I did, the marketing I did do, though, was just like, I think I always did AMS ads. Well, not always, but as soon as I learned about them, but like a really small budget. And then I think with Come Back to Bed, that was the first time I started doing Facebook ads. So that probably helped, because I actually, would have a little tiny excerpt from the book. And then that was the first time I started producing an audiobook for my books too. And so kind of from Come Back to Bed on, like, even though I didn't have a publicist at that point, and I didn't have, bloggers doing stuff, and I didn't have people doing early reviews. I just, I don't know. I think that people, when they discover my books, they get very excited, and they actually just write reviews because they want to. I never, but so now I do. I do all that stuff. The first publicist I hired didn't really work out for me, and now I have a good publicist, and I have beta readers, and I have 3 layers of editors, and I have a great cover designer. I do all the things, and to me, I mean, this isn't answering what I wish I'd known, but what I have figured out is that my brand it's me, it's my voice. Like, that's kind of what people are responding to in my books. And as part of just who I am, my personality, I can't ignore a notification on social media, or, like, if I get an email from a fan. And so I respond to everything immediately. And what I realized, and this wasn't, this wasn't intended, but what I realized is, every time I make a comment on social media responding to a fan, that's kind of like ninja marketing, because they're interacting with the personality of my books. And so I think that just because I'm, and I don't post very much on social media at all. I'm kind of only on, at this point, I'm only on there so that I can keep in touch with fans, and so that like actual current readers can keep in touch with me. But every time I do post, or every time I respond to, being tagged or mentioned or whatever, I think it's kind of a form of marketing. And I've been very happy with that. Like, that works for me. But also every year I kind of make a decision to do something else, something that makes to challenge myself and expand my marketing, I don't know, I guess we'll say capabilities. So, so the next step for me is like doing social media to actually get new readers, which is not something I've tried to do yet. I've kind of shied away from it.
Right.
So that's like, TikTok. I have to do TikTok next.
I was going to say, I've been doing TikTok for that reason.
Yeah.
My current readers are not really, I think there are a few on TikTok, but for the most part, they're not there. So I'm going after new readers. It's hard. It's hard.
Is it?
Yeah. I found it to be hard. I find it to be fun. I love the medium. I mean, it works for me and my personality, but
because you're funny.
Well, thank you. As far as finding readers, it's tricky. It's tricky.
So but you do have to diversify because like sometimes for no apparent reason, your Facebook ad that's been running for 2 months gets rejected all of a sudden because of the bots, so you have to have other things going.
Absolutely.
And so there's that. And then, there's, I don't know, have I answered your actual question?
You have. That was great. And I think we all wish we'd known more about marketing when we started, unless we have a marketing degree.
The other thing I wish I'd known, I mean, I guess I also kind of, again, I did know it, but it's something I resisted for some reason, is that just doing a series of books is in a way marketing. Just having connected. And I did those first 3 books I called it a series. They were only connected by theme. The theme was that they're all workaholics. Like, that's just not a romance thing. Like nobody types in workaholic romance, workaholic heroine. But that was something that appealed to me because that's, who I am. But for some reason, I wrote some books that did have crossover characters, but I just didn't want to link them for some reason. And then I finally did just in this last year. And I can totally see how it helps with marketing. That's like a free thing you can do that counts as marketing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think exactly right.
Yeah. I think that's really smart though, too. I like your under the radar plan because so many people, we start out and we have such big expectations and it's very difficult. And so like by going a little bit slower, by the time you had some backlist, when you start ramping up, you've got,
that was another piece of it. Like that was another reason why I thought with my 10th book, that's when I'll actually get a publicist and start doing PR stuff, because I knew I would have a backlist at that point. So once people did discover me, they could go back and read stuff, because I knew I wouldn't be able to put out X number of books, every year while I was also doing marketing stuff, because that takes up a lot of time. Yeah.
I want to talk about your audiobooks though, in that, do you do simultaneous releases with your audiobooks?
So that's the thing. I've never actually done a simultaneous release. I have gotten to a point. So my first deadline for my books are actually for the audio, because at this point, so I book the narrators and cast them long before I write the books now, because I actually write specifically for my narrators, for their voices and their personalities, if I know them. But I still haven't done an actual simultaneous release. They're getting closer now, because the recording, like for Attachment Theory, the recording starts next week and the ebook doesn't release until the week after. I'm going to do, I don't know if you've used ACX, but like they've actually for whatever reason, they're starting to put stuff out quicker. Like for a long time, you had no idea how long it would take them for a book to go live. So I was doing pre-orders, and I would do a set on sale date. But you had to sort of leave quite several weeks between when you actually get the final files back and the on sale date so that they could process it. But now it's down to like a week. And so I'm going to, for Attachment Theory, which is my next release, I'm actually going to do like a live release, and we'll see how that goes. And so it might come out sooner than it would have if I did a set on sale date.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm experimenting with that. And the thing is, like, you know, my audiobook fans, who I love very, very, very much, but they always complain about having to wait. And it doesn't matter how long they have to wait. I mean, a lot of people want a simultaneous release. I have an author friend who has always done simultaneous releases, and she keeps telling me you have to do it because you will get more sales and everything. And the thing is, like, my audiobooks, for whatever reason, they do well. Like, I've been profitable from the very beginning. Even when it comes out later. So like, I do have people who will read the audiobook because they can't wait to just find out what the story is. And then they'll be like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing in audio. I need to listen to the audio. Or, you know, they're planning on reading. There are people who are like, they'll start reading it and they're like, nope, it's so good. I just have to wait for the audio and the narrator's telling the story, which I'm like, yeah, that's not insulting at all.
Yeah.
I know they don't mean for it to be insulting, but you know, it kind of is. It's like, okay, if you're not going to enjoy it unless my actors are
that's funny.
Yeah.
But so I'm still working on that. But the thing is, it's like I make so much more money through Kindle Unlimited than I do through audiobooks. It doesn't actually make sense to me to make my eyeball readers wait for the audiobook to be ready, because which I think, you know, you kind of have to do in order to catch up and make it a simultaneous release. And so I keep releasing the ebooks first. One day perhaps I will get it together and actually do a simultaneous release, but it's not
tricky though. It's tricky.
Yeah. Have you ever done it?
No, I have not. That's a lot of coordination
it is.
Yeah. I tried it. I couldn't get it to match up because it was
you have to do
delay.
a really long pre-order for your ebook too. You have to put out the ebook first in order to set up.
Yes. And so I'm doing mine through Findaway Voices because I'm wide. So I have.
Oh, you are. Okay.
So it's like a big mystery. You just don't know. I mean, you know, it'll go live on certain retailers on certain dates. Google Play is very good at getting it out on time, and Kobo, but then like ACX, and you just don't know. And so it goes live
everywhere on different dates.
And I would try and direct people to, oh look, it's live over here. But then people are very loyal to like ACX or whoever, or Audible, whoever they're with, and they want all their stuff together in the same
on a certain app.
Yes, and so
I get them.
So it's tricky.
Do you like Findaway Voices? I mean, aside from
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's helped me find a bunch of new readers. Like we were talking about how you want to kind of have your core and you want to reach out to some new people that haven't heard of you. And that through audio, I've been able to do that because I feel like that it's a completely different group of people usually.
It is. There is some crossover, but it's pretty different. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Well, speaking of your writing schedule, so you said you can write a book like in 6 weeks. Is that what you said?
That's what it comes down to. Like I do, that's like the actual writing of the chapters. I do outline and like, you know, so there's always like, once I've finished a book, I try to give myself an actual week of a brain break, but, I'm already taking notes, and especially if it's like this Attachment Theory is the second book in the Brody Brothers series. Now that I've figured out that series works, and so and so you know, I know all the characters, I know all the story arcs for the characters before starting the book, and so I have that, and like I'm always making notes for stuff, and so like my first phase of writing I have just a document that called notes and ideas. And so I'll just put all my ideas in there. And they're mostly about characters, and it'll come out in dialogue. And then I start to like really get organized. And then I have a different file that's just going to be an outline and like specifically character descriptions and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then I go into it, and I'm kind of a hybrid outliner and pantser most of the time, mm-hmm. in that I don't like to, like, I always know exactly where I'm heading, but I don't like to outline kind of the back half mm-hmm. of the book when I first get started. And then I usually, once I get to sort of like 3/4 of the way in, it feels like I have to. And I go back and I will outline it more specifically, but mm-hmm. I always know where I'm going. Like I call it, for me, it's like a road trip mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. where, you know, I know where I'm going. I know the major stops that I want to make along the way, but I'm not like making reservations at specific hotels so that I have to get there at exactly the right time, because I know that once I start writing, the characters are going to lead the way to a certain degree. But I do need some outline for mm-hmm. sure. And I also have different, I have like notebooks for every one of my projects. So when I start writing, I write in a notebook just because you think differently, you know, mm-hmm. with a pen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when you go to the keyboard, and then I also have a whiteboard and I have a bulletin board. And so the whiteboard is all character stuff, so I can just quickly look at it and see, okay, who is mm-hmm. who, and how are they related, and what's their age, and where are they from, and that kind of thing. And then the bulletin board is for index cards with chapters, and mm-hmm. I organize it, you know, and I like, here are the major things that have to happen.
Yeah, that's
in each
great.
chapter. And so, yeah, that's something I learned as a screenwriter. That's something one of my fellow staff writers at the studio did, and that was a cool thing to learn. Mm-hmm. So.
That is great. And then after that, like, do you write so many words a day, or I mean, do you have a word count goal, or do you have a page goal?
No, it's always, I try to do a chapter a day, and my chapters totally vary in length, and I tend to, you know, I will stay at my desk until I've finished a chapter, even if it's like a 3,500 word chapter, which I really shouldn't be doing, but in the beginning, my chapters tend to be really long. And so I very often, you know, I don't finish writing until like 9 o'clock, and then I'll have dinner. Then I'll exercise at 10:30 at night.
Wow. You're dedicated.
I am. I mean, I haven't been, you know, for like all 3 years that I've been doing this, but this year I'm like, you know what? My body is changing because of being an author, so I have to actually, even if I'm exercising at midnight, I'll do it.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Well, I love that. I love to hear that I like to hear other people's process. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys do?
Oh, well, you don't want to know mine. You know, I don't write very fast. So I do a bit of binge writing here and there. Yeah. That's pretty much mine. What about yours, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm more I have to have an outline, but it's more a loose outline. You know, I need to know where I'm going, but I don't break it down into the teeny tiny details, because I can't see that much in depth. When I start a project, I have to get into it. So
for sure. You guys have matching eyeglasses. I just noticed.
Oh, we do.
That's funny.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Kind of awesome. I love those.
It's our uniform. It's our podcast uniform.
Well, there's one question we have to ask that I know people will be curious about, since you were a screenwriter. What are your thoughts on someone who's very, very interested in getting their book made into a movie or picked up by Netflix? I mean,
I don't know.
Give us the realistic view here.
I mean, it's not even something I want for myself as an author. So, I mean, you know, I think in the romance genre, I'm guessing it would have to be really edgy or racy or some kind of thriller element. Like I honestly don't expect anyone to come knocking and say we want to adapt to Kayley Loring, but because they aren't, I mean, for features, they really don't make romantic comedies for women anymore. Like ever since Judd Apatow got in the game, like with 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I love those movies, but studios realized that they could reach a male audience with romantic comedies if they cast someone like Seth Rogen, who looks like your average schmo who's a hilarious nerd with a gorgeous girlfriend. And so, it's not like the romance novels that we're writing now. It's not about a dreamy, swoony hero. So, that it might, obviously I don't watch passion flicks, so I don't know about them, but I'm guessing I know Amy Dawes sold her thing, so that's probably the first actual rom-com that they're doing. I'm sure that
I think they've done Rachel Van Dyken's rom-com that she wrote. I can't think of the name of it. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Even those are still more suspense and or sprawling. They're kind of sprawling books.
It needs another element besides just romance for the most part, I think. Unless it's something like a Nicholas Sparks novel, I suppose. But I think those only get made because they're Nicholas Sparks, and they have to be, a huge bestseller where they know that Nicholas Sparks fans are actually going to see the movie, I think. And those very few of those movies are actually getting made. The movies that are actually getting made for theaters are huge, like Marvel type movies, like huge, big budget movies, or tiny little independent films where you have a very small cast and crew and, ideally less than two people on screen where they can be, 6 feet apart at all times. So
exactly.
So, and I would also say, if you do happen to have a book optioned, don't be upset if they completely change it, because that just happens. That always happens. I mean, I saw some of the BB Easton show on Netflix, and I mean, it's nothing like the book. And you have to be okay with that, because they're going to adapt it for the audience that they're trying to attract and for their own format. And also it's very likely going to be a lower budget, because romance, I mean, especially on streaming, unless it's like, I don't know if, I mean, like Hallmark probably, if it's a clean romance, I'm sure Hallmark is optioning books. I don't know. That's not really my space, but I'm sure that's happening. But again, they're gonna change it for structure. They're gonna change it for a specific actor that they want. So you can't, be happy if they buy it and your name's going to be on there as the author of the book that it's based on.
And then you have to let go.
You absolutely have to let it go. I mean, that's kind of the overall lesson as an author when you put something out in the world.
In general, yes, exactly.
Over how people are going to respond. You just don't. Exactly. So enjoy the writing process and write what makes you feel good, and then let it go.
Let it go. Well, we always like to ask our guests, what do you think the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success is?
The best thing that I've done, I think, is just, well, like I said, taking it slow, just knowing myself, knowing that if I had gone into this trying to do all the things that you're supposed to do as an author right out of the gate, I would have gotten burnt out very quickly. But instead, I focused on really figuring out, this genre and the readership, and finding my voice as a romance author, which is, it's funny because Kayley Loring is a pen name. And at first I didn't tell anyone that I knew, IRL, or like the people that I knew in LA, what my pen name was. And I had a couple of, especially like male screenwriter friends who just kept asking me, and they wanted to read my books. And I finally told them, and they did. And they were like, I can totally tell it's your writing. Like, and to me, it's so different. And I was really embarrassed because, I was writing the stuff they had read of mine had barely even kissing in any of it.
Yes,
this is like open door sex. And I was so embarrassed. But they were like, no, I can totally tell it's you. It's your voice. And so that's kind of actually good to know, I guess. But I guess setting myself up for success was just knowing who I am and knowing what people respond to in my writing and sticking with that. Like I think it took me a really long time to actually do the branding stuff as an author, but I was aware of branding because of, a particular studio that I worked for. I was aware of the concept of branding. And so I think the first notion that I had, like I said, was that my brand is my personality and my author's voice, And so that has always been, the lighthouse.
Yep. That's great.
It's pretty simple.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you for being here. This has been fun. Great. Yeah, I know that everybody's going to love it. So,
well, where can people find out more about you?
I don't know. Like I said, read one of my books if you want to find out about me. I'm mostly, so I have a Facebook group called Kayleyville, KAYLEYVILLE, and I'm very accessible there. And then the other place I am more often is Instagram. Just at Kayley Loring on Instagram. So,
okay.
Say hi.
All right. Well, we will have the links in the show notes, and those will be at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. So thanks for talking to us today, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.